I'm the chair of STAC and also the director of operations at PACT. And I want to welcome everyone for joining us today, and also welcome to our new members who are here for the their first STAC meeting in some cases. And I'll go ahead and turn this over to Brian for some housekeeping items and for the roll call.
All right, good morning. Thanks, Megan. So first, I'd like to turn it over to Carlos, our interpreter, to introduce himself and walk us through how to access the interpretation services for today's meeting.
Thank you very much, Brian. I will start with the announcement in Spanish and then I'll come back for the instructions in English. Buenos días. Como se acaba de anunciar, se está ofreciendo servicio de interpretación simultánea para esta reunión. Para hacer uso del servicio, por favor, desplácese a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen sus controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, parece un globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom en celular, tableta, etc., presione primero los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Por último, si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Once again, we do have interpretation available. To use the feature, please scroll down to the bottom of the Zoom screen where your meeting controls are. Then click on the interpretation icon. It looks like a little world, and then select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app on a cell phone, tablet, or other mobile device, first press the ellipsis, the three dots, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on Mute Original Audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Carlos. And I think we can take attendance, make sure we have a quorum. I'll read out your names. If you can quickly unmute and say you're here, I'd appreciate it. We'll start with Ilsa. Carrie?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ted? Ted?
Ted Kagan here. Thank you.
Hey, Ted. Is Kent Rodrigues here? Don't believe so. Clyde?
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Clyde. You'll be
Hi.
voting in Kent's spot today.
Okay.
Lori Seagram?
I'm present. Good morning.
Morning. Sharon?
Good morning, present.
Hi, Sharon. Catherine Manis?
Good morning, here.
Wayne? I know you're here, Wayne. You're still here? Well, I know Wayne's here. We can put him as present, but you're alternate today, Wayne. David Jackson? I believe David is here as well. He probably moved over from his Galaxy, or it might be on the attendee side. If we can get David at least to unmute. Let's see.
Okay.
David, you can unmute yourself. There you go.
I'm here.
Good morning.
Morning.
Alex Warner.
I'm here. Good morning.
Hi. And then Marcy.
Marcy Roque is not on the call. This is Adrienne Imhatby for Travelers Aid.
Awesome. Good morning. Marissa Lucero or Elsa. I'm not sure if I saw either of them jump on yet. We'll jump down to Todd Shaw.
Here.
Morning. Anthony DeSalis or Matt with ARC. I don't think they're here. Elizabeth Wagner, or is it Nancy here today?
This is Elizabeth. I'm here.
Oh, perfect. And I think Nancy's here as well to back you up. And then from FACT, we have Megan. Good morning. And then was Cynthia Arun's replacement today?
Enter your meeting ID followed by
Yes.
Okay. And then from MTS, Vasi? Or Jay? Neither from MTS. Yeah.
Attendees can now hear you speak.
Robert, I think we can hear your background noise. Is Katie here with NCTD?
No, and she won't be.
And
She'll
then
just
Robert?
be kind of a backup to me when I'm not here.
Okay.
This is Robert.
Perfect. Anyone else from MTS? I see a hand raised. Oh, Jay's trying to get in. Give Jay a second. I see another hand raised from WMUB4. I'll ask WMUB4.
Jay Washburn here.
Hi, Jay. And then who's WMUB4? You can unmute yourself. Are you a member? Not sure.
This is Elsa Caballero from San Diego Center for the Blind, but I don't think that was my particular account, just letting you know I'm here.
Oh, perfect. Good morning.
Oh, that is me. Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Yep.
Bessie will not be attending. She's still on maternity leave.
Okay. So just the one from MTS. Thanks, Jay. All right. Did I miss anybody?
No, Brian, this is Wayne. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can, Wayne. Thanks.
Brian, I didn't hear you ask if Edward was here.
Oh, well, he's an alternate. So
Edward's not here today.
when the primary's here, that's all we care about.
Okay.
Nothing against you or against Edward. The alternates for the members or the groups are a little different than the other ones. Sorry, Allison's learning to help out with this and hopefully we'll take over Lisa's old duties when we get things moving here. All right, anybody else? I think we're good with the tenants. I obviously have a quorum. Now I'll jump into some housekeeping. The meeting is being recorded, as you noticed. To vote, for STAC members, if you'd like to speak or provide comments, notify staff by one, clicking your camera on or raising your hand. Some of you already keep your cameras on, that's fine. Please make sure to unmute your microphone to speak. And if you're not speaking, please make sure that your microphone is muted. For clarity of the record, please identify yourself each time you speak, and please only use the chat box if you're having technical difficulties. For voting by state law, all votes in a teleconference meeting must be by roll call vote. After there's been a motion and a second, the chair will call for the vote of each member individually, and that member will be unmuted to vote. At the conclusion of voting, the chair will announce the result. For those on members of the public, you're virtually attending this meeting, you may comment by raising your hand in Zoom. To do so, click on the raise hand icon at the bottom. If you're participating by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. And then when the chair recognizes you, you'll be unmuted by staff and can make your comment. For every agenda item, the chair must request public comments, and this must be stated clearly on the record. We need to state that either there are none for the record or that we have public comments. For items with an action, the clerk performs the roll call vote, and the chair will ask for the motion in the second and recognize members. The members themselves must speak for the record. And then lastly, please speak at a normal pace so that Carlos can adequately interpret all of the information. Thank you. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll hand it back to Megan.
Thank you, Brian. So we're going to go to item number 2, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from the July meeting. Does anyone have any comments? Any members have any comments about the minutes or want to move for approval?
Ted, motion to approve the minutes presented.
Thank you, Ted.
Second, Jay Washburn.
Thank you, Jay. So now we will go ahead and
If I might note, Megan, at that
Sure.
last meeting, we did approve some new members. I don't know if you want to
yes,
recognize and say hi. I kind of skipped over that during the introduction. Sorry.
sure, no worries. Yes, thank you to our new members who are here. I believe we have several who were members in the past and are rejoining as members. Is that correct? And then one totally new member. Sharon.
Hey, hi.
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 Ed.
Oh, sorry. Was that a question, Megan? Yes, we have
Yeah.
one new member, Alex Wagner from the
Alex.
city of San Diego. The rest of the members that came back were members that have been members before and been here for years. But Alex, I know you've started attending recently. I don't know if you wanted to give a quick hi or anything.
Hi, this is Alex Warner, and I'm with the City of San Diego, and I'm very happy to be part of this group.
Great. Well, thank you. We're so happy to have you. And we're also happy to have our members who have been with us before as members back again. So this is wonderful. Thank you all for committing to this group. Okay, we have the motion by Ted and second by Jay to approve the minutes. And now I believe we'll go through the roll call vote.
All right. You guys want to bring up the member list? I can help go down it. I can jump in. Ilsa for the minutes.
I approve.
Clyde.
I approve.
Lori.
I approve.
Sharon.
I approve.
Catherine.
Approve.
Let's see, we have man, it's hard to see that screen. I believe the voting member is Adriana for Travelers
Yes, I
Day.
approve.
All right. Elsa.
Approve.
Thank you. Todd.
Approve.
Just in case, did we happen to get anyone from the ARC jump in yet? Doesn't look like it. Skip down to Elizabeth.
Yes, I approve.
Cynthia. While we're waiting on her, Megan.
Approve.
Let's see, Jay seconded, so we'll assume that's an approve. And then Robert.
Approve.
Okay, Megan, that passes.
Sorry, I heard a beep. Was there somebody trying to speak right now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brian. The motion for the minutes passes. All right, we can go ahead then and move on to item number 3, which is public member comments. Do we have any member comments first? Sharon?
Yes, hi. I just wanted to say I am so glad the students are back at UCSD. I went to Whole Foods and used my Pronto card, yay. Went to Whole Foods up at UTC area, got on the 30 and the 201 and the 202, and I was just delighted to be back in the community. And there's so much more to public transit than just getting from point A to point B. It's getting connected with your community. It's seeing the joy in young people. It's getting out there. So I just wanted to say, yay, I'm glad they're back.
Thank you for sharing that, Sharon. Other member comments? Or attendee comments? Okay. Then we can go ahead and go through to item number 4, which is the staff report from Sandag. And I'll go ahead and let it go back to Brian.
Thanks, Megan. I checked with Zach Rivera to see if he had any new information. He said no, nothing new on the grants front. He'll be taking an item, I believe, next October with some information on that. So keep your ears out. If you attend CAM, you hear from Zach at that. Other things from Sandag, I just wanted to point out that I'll be taking an item this Thursday to the Sandag Social Equity Working Group about a transit pilot, a social equity transit pilot. The concept with this is Hassan, our executive director, has heard that we need to move some things forward to help resolve social equity in the region. And he asked staff to find some money that we could apply towards something that could help folks. And they found $8 million. So I'll be taking an item Thursday. We've been meeting with a small group of those folks to talk about what we could do with that. And they're really pushing for a free transit youth fare for all youth that are 18 and under. So that may be one of the options that we move forward on. They'd also like to educate folks in the region on how they can use public transit, especially in disadvantaged communities. And then if there's some leftover money, maybe put some of those funds towards adding some trips on some routes. So that'll go to the Social Equity Working Group. They'll discuss it Thursday. They'll further, then we'll, if they recommend that it move forward, I'd go to the Transportation Committee and the board in October to do a budget amendment. And then we'd start working with MTS and NCTD on the specifics of it and get the money over to them to help with that. Other than that, that's about it from Sandag's side, unless Allison or Ashley or anyone else have anything.
Brian, just real quick, you talk about youth fairs, but now that gets confusing to some people. So you include up to and including 18 years of age in there.
Yeah, I think both agencies, fair policy includes 18-year-olds.
You, Brian, is there anything, any updates from Sandag about the in-person meetings, or if I know the plan was for September to go back to in-person, but it doesn't seem like with the variants that's happening.
Yeah, from what I've heard, nothing yet. I still haven't heard if the Transportation Committee next month will be in person or not. We'll continue to stay virtual. Obviously, I think even in our November meeting, I think it's safest to do that. And we're still trying to figure out how to do hybrid meetings. So if we do want to come back in person, we'd still want to, I think it's been really beneficial to the community to be able to just jump online and not travel and attend these meetings. And it's opened up a whole lot of folks to be able to attend. So we're trying to figure out a great hybrid option where we can still see the folks who are at the meeting and give the people who are virtual a chance to attend. So they're still working out those kinks. It's not easy, I've heard. We're trying to figure out how that would work on Zoom and all that. So for the time being, I think we're still assuming November for STAC in person, and maybe not till next year, figure out the hybrid.
And if I could just add too, Sacramento recognizes the difficulties with this. The governor just signed the order extending to 2024 the modifications or exemptions to the Brown Act to allow the continuation of remote meetings while still meeting all the Brown Act requirements.
Okay, thank you, Jay, and thank you, Brian. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Sandag on the staff report? Okay, I don't see anyone. So item number 5 is the Harbor Drive 2.0 concept of operations. And I believe Suhini Natarajan is going to be presenting this item. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chair Megan Schmidt, and thank you for the opportunity for
helping us bring this item to you. Before turning it over to our consultant team who will help us through this presentation, I would like to provide some opening remarks and a little bit of context on the effort that you will be hearing about today, but also shed some light on why we are here today. My name is Suhasini Natarajan, and I am a senior transportation planner at Sandag. With me today are Don Murphy and Matt Cox from IBI Group, our consultant team. As many of you are aware, Sandag has initiated the development of the 2021 regional plan based on the 5 big moves concepts that are driven by a vision. A vision that is predicated on the application of technology across all the 5 big moves. Specifically under the next operating or next OS concept, this vision is intended to provide a better experience for everyone, regardless of what mode they choose. A vision that is also intended to provide and improve access for all users, travelers, to improve safety, efficiency, and also improve how we can meet the needs of the transportation future by making sure that all the systems talk and work together seamlessly using data and technology. And in order to carry out the implementation of the next operating systems elements, it starts with us examining and attaining an understanding of how the technology and data will be used. We do this through the completion of what we call the concept of operations or ConOps reports. Before developing and designing technologies, we must have a clear understanding of the purpose of the proposed technology, systems, tools, as well as how that system will be used by the various users. These are the motivating elements captured in a ConOps report before we proceed with the next steps. Sandag is developing a concept of operations report for the Harbor Drive 2.0 effort, which aims to streamline activities along Harbor Drive through physical improvements and also technology upgrades to provide a more comfortable, enjoyable, and productive experience for all users. We have identified the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council as a key stakeholder to get insight and input that will help us in making sure that all needs of possible users are being considered. So today you will be hearing about the work that we are undertaking for developing the ConOps for Harbor Drive. So with that, let me turn over to the IBI team who will introduce and walk you through the key highlights to get your input and feedback in the development of the Harbor Drive ConOps. So over to you, Don and Matt.
Great. Thank you, Suha, and thank you all for allowing us to present to you today. So as Suha mentioned, my name is Matthew Cox. I'm a systems engineer with IBI Group, and I'm also joined by Catherine Thibault and Don Murphy, also with IBI. So the agenda that we have for today, we want to go over the overall concept of the Harbor Drive 2.0 concept of operations. Sorry. Sounds like we're hearing some feedback from David.
There you go. Good. I muted him.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna, as I mentioned, we're gonna discuss the overall concept of the Harbor Drive 2.0 corridor project, and then go into a more in-depth dive into the development of our user needs and the gaps in our user needs, and we'll discuss what those are shortly. But first, we wanted to introduce the overall project boundaries of where this project is going to take place. So on the screen, we have a map showing our boundaries, and the highlighted sections are it extends from the 10th Avenue Marine Terminal in the north to the National City Marine Terminal in the south, bordered by Interstate 5 in the east and the San Diego Bay in the west, and that includes, of course, Naval Base San Diego, the shipyards, those 2 terminals, and of course the community of Barrio Logan, and south of that the community of National City. As well as an important piece of the overall project and of the project area is that our project doesn't include just the Harbor Drive corridor itself. It also includes the arterials that connect between Harbor Drive and the interstate systems, whether that's I-5 or SR-15. So those include Cesar Chavez Parkway, Sampson Street, 28th Street, 32nd Street, and then in National City, we have West 8th Street and 19th Street. So first, we just want to describe real quick the basic sections of the concept of operations and why we want to bring this to you today. So we wanted to start in the green box where it says concept of operations development. The first three that we have there are users, goals, and needs. Users in a concept of operation could include the residents of Barrio Logan and National City in our project area, truck drivers that between getting freight from the ports to the freeway, city workers who maintain equipment in the area, shipyard workers who work there, and military and civilian staff who work on Naval Base San Diego, among others. These users have specific goals, depending on who they are, that improve their interaction on the corridor. And a lot of these goals were developed prior to our project here of the concept of operations. So those overarching goals for this area include, but are not limited to, there's more, improving community safety, mobility, and health, improving access to recreational facilities, and improving climate resiliency. And like I said, that's among others. These are just a subset of our total goals. And to achieve those overarching goals, we have needs that are more specific and targeted and address subsets of those goals. And then finally, the needs, which is the point of our discussion today. Like I said, they're targeted and specific. And so I want, as an example, we have one of the goals I stated was improving community safety. A component need of that goal would be could be to improve street lighting in areas that it's lacking and things like that. So we want to break it down into that subset need. And then the final two boxes are strategies and phasing. So these are going to be in the final concept of operations, where we discuss the potential technology solutions to improve corridor operation. And I want to emphasize again that this concept of operations is really based on improving the technology aspects rather than the physical aspects, which are important, but not the focus of this concept. And then, yeah, like I said, the strategies and phasing, those strategies are those potential ITS or technology solutions. And the phasing is just what it sounds like. It's the order in which those potential solutions are implemented, whether they require something to happen before you can implement it and things like that. So as I mentioned, there's a number of projects that preceded our concept of operations development. Those are the inputs, which are shown on this slide 3, which include the real base for this project is the Harbor Drive Multimodal Corridor Study, which was completed last year, as well as the Freight Signal Priority Pilot Project conducted by the Port of San Diego, the proposed truck route and prohibition map, as well as the other inputs include the San Diego Forward, the 2021 Regional Plan, the Barrio Logan Community Plan, and the Bikeway Master Plan, and in this area, in particular, the Bayshore Bikeway, which is scheduled to go into construction next year. And then on slide 4, we wanted to list a couple of the potential ITS, or excuse me, potential Harbor Drive 2.0 technologies that we could use in this area. So the first one I have here is smart intersections, and this is one that I believe you were presented last year as a subset with curb management. But in addition to the bullet points where it say improving accessible pedestrian signals and increased visibility and safety for pedestrian bicyclists, smart intersections could also include things like live traffic conditions, real-time monitoring of accidents, traffic, air quality, noise, parking, among others. It could also provide priority for transit vehicles or freight vehicles at certain times of the day. It could provide priority for cyclists or pedestrians as well, depending on the area. So there's a lot you could do with smart intersections. And I wanted to pass it over to Catherine.
Thank you. So another example of technologies that we would look at as strategies to support this CONOPS would be technologies for mobility hubs. So this whole corridor has been identified by SANDAG as a mobility hub that is an area where there is a high concentrations of people living, working, and traveling, and that would benefit from new amenities to support mobility. So multimodal infrastructure that help accessing these destinations, these transit stations, and create new mode choices. So technologies that we could look at to support these mobility hubs would be real-time information. So people have access to all the information, all the modes are available in real time, get to know when there are delays or changes, and then get better information so they can plan their route and book their trips accordingly, and all that to support multimodal travel choices. Next slide, please. So to support us in our work, we have been meeting with a stakeholder working group and we'll be meeting with them throughout the process. So the stakeholders that we have in our group include people who have jurisdiction, agencies who have jurisdiction over the corridor or who operate facilities along the corridor. So people who know the corridor, work in it, travel along it, and have the ability to implement the strategies that we will identify. And then in addition to this stakeholder working group, we are meeting with you today in the hope that you can provide additional feedback on the needs that the people who live along the corridor, especially communities from Barrio Logan and National City, have, so that we can make sure that we address these as part of our strategies. So back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Catherine. So in those discussions with our stakeholders so far, we've started to identify initial challenges to the area. And so we've listed a few subsets of challenges on the next couple of slides just to give you an idea of what we have. So included into that, we have the access and safety issues around trolley stations and key intersections and corridors there. We've noted that there's higher levels of transportation and industrial related emissions in the area, particularly if you notice the map on the screen, it's in the area just in National City, as well as in a lot of the Barrio Logan community near the shipyards in Naval Base San Diego. Another concern that we've identified is the traffic bottlenecks on major arterials. Like I mentioned earlier, especially those leading to Naval Base San Diego on 32nd Street, as well as East 8th Street, and of course in the community on Cesar Chavez and 28th Street, and on Harbor Drive itself, of course. Some additional challenges that we've found is that the truck prohibition on some Barrio Logan neighborhood streets has only been partially effective, and they're looking at expanding that. Those prohibited parking areas and things like that in that area. We've also noted that there's high truck parking demand near the National City Marine Terminal, and those often conflict with Bayshore Bikeway facilities in the area. So it is kind of a safety conflict there, or a potential safety conflict anyway. And then finally, the last challenge that we've listed here is that intersections along the corridor aren't coordinated in this way to provide priority for cyclists or pedestrians, or potentially improving the green time, the signal green time for transit and freight vehicles. And that goes back to but the potential for freight and transit signal priority systems in the area. So from these initial challenges, and we've started to identify user needs. So again, I want to again emphasize that the users in the area could include the community members, the shipyard workers, Naval Base San Diego staff, and things like that. So some of the users' needs that we've developed are shown on the screen here that include reducing conflicts between freight traffic, pedestrians, and cyclists. There's improving access and connections at transit stations, reducing stop and go traffic, reducing congestion on major arterials, prevent trucks from entering local neighborhood streets to reduce residents' exposure to pollution, improve access to shared transportation, whether that's be shuttles or the flexible fleets that I saw that was presented or briefly mentioned earlier in the meeting, shared bicycles and scooters, and access to pick up and drop off locations for rideshare companies, among others. Another user need that we've developed is addressing the issues to avoid conflicts between truck traffic, bike paths, and pedestrians. And finally, providing priority access to freight at key periods of the day to reduce those emissions and idling and things like that, and improving congestion. So again, I want to specify that what we're looking for is challenges or needs that you feel are important to this area, that we may have missed or that we want to add to. Challenges that you feel are particularly important. And again, I want to emphasize that we're happy to take note of the physical issues that there are in the area, but we really are more focused on the technology or information aspects that we can improve using this ConOps. So I want to open up the discussion. So if anyone wants to break in and have a need or a challenge that you've identified, or if you want to add it into the chat as well, that would be perfectly fine as well.
Thank you so much. Does anyone from the member side have any questions or comments?
Or areas of concern that you know.
Or from attendees, either way, we'll take any.
Hi, Megan. This is Catherine Manis with the City of San Marcos.
Hi,
I just wanted to say that I like the emphasis on the crosswalks because I think that's so important. We see so many people on their bikes or walking, crossing the streets where there's no crosswalk. So I appreciate the emphasis and the focus you're going to put on that area. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That is crossing the major arterials is one that's definitely that we want to try to improve. We note that we didn't list it in the user needs here, or the challenges, excuse me. But we have taken note in the shipyard areas where the workers there, of course, park along Harbor Drive quite often, and then they tend to cross where it's convenient rather than at locations where there are identified crosswalks. So that is something we want to be looking at. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you, Catherine. We have Alex.
Hi, this is Alex. And then one of the concerns with all those intersections and those areas is of course safety. And are we recommending audible traffic signals or beacons on those intersections?
Hi, Alex. Yeah, this is Don Murphy with IBI. So I assume you're the audible. You're talking about the audible systems with the countdown, so people with visual impairments can understand how much time and when they have the crossing indications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can definitely take a look at from multiple angles, because that's there are some planned signal upgrades, but I think like was stated before, kind of all aspects of the pedestrian crossings of the streets is going to be a key consideration. So that's a good input. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the concerns with this type of documents is that we don't differentiate between access and accessibility. So it's when we are reviewing this type of documents, it's like a lot of people think when we're going to improve access, that means access in general, right? But then when we really need to focus on improvement accessibility, ADA compliance, then it's really hard to differentiate on the documents.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a comment, like I review a lot of those documents. And then there is sometimes that I wish we had a different type of language, to call out accessibility when we talk about accessibility requirements or when we talk accessibility in general.
So making a clear distinction between just generalized access and maybe accessibility from an ADA type perspective.
Yeah, that will be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you for those comments, Alex. It looks like we have Sharon also has a comment.
Yeah, hi,
You're
thank you. As Alex said, I'd like to see another possible level to that on the Audible, to also have it offered in Spanish.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Other member or attendee comments? Heidi?
Hi. I really appreciated Alex's comments, everyone's for that matter. I want to mention though, I live in San Marcos. I don't ride in San Diego that often. And so it's really important to me that that access to enter or leave any of the forms of transportation, it needs to be really clear for me how I know where to be and how to get on and how to get off. It's some of the places, particularly respecting trolleys, can be very bewildering to me, and I would really like to be able to get around more within the metropolitan system. So just wanted to comment that was a really important issue, and you know, I realize we're addressing things in general speak, and so I heard that mentioned, but it was very brief and I didn't know where that was going. I'd be interested to know what's being done to actually make trolley stops or actually also the coaster easier to negotiate. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very important comment, especially the need for that real-time accurate information on how to get around on multimodal transportation, whether that's the trolley, buses, flexible fleets, or what have you. So thank you for that comment. And that is definitely that real-time information and the technology aspect. That's exactly what we're looking for. So thank you for that. And it's especially important here with the Blue Line, as you said, the coaster meets in downtown there, as well as there's, I think, 9 bus routes in this area as well. So it's having that real-time information is vital.
Yeah, let me just say this real quick. Real-time information is great, although as a blind traveler, I usually allow lots of time. It's even more nitty-gritty than that for me. It's where do I stand? Where is that trolley that I need going to stop? Where do I, and there's some information, but to me, there's not enough and it's not clear enough. So I've been in a few places where I just hope I'm doing making the right moves. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I want to say, so that's a great comment. Where do I stand? Where's the trolley going to stop? That's that nitty gritty stuff is exactly what we're looking for. We want to be as nitty gritty as possible, because as we mentioned, we can only really design the systems for the issues that we know about. So thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments, Clyde. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much to Suha and Matthew and Don and Catherine for your presentation.
We have a couple of quick more slides.
Okay, sure.
Thanks, Mike. This is just finalizing the last couple of things that we have here. So we have created a needs assessment survey that lists more of the needs that we listed in that table, and it'll help us to provide, and they are from a community and access and accessibility perspective, and we want to get your perspective on the levels of importance of different factors. Whether a need is important, very important to you, or right now, or less important to you. We also have the last question on that short 10 minute survey is an open-ended blank question or an open-ended blank slot. So you can input your any concerns or any questions or comments or potential solutions even, or what have you, anything you want to tell us. So the link to that survey is included in the agenda. I will try to add it to the chat if possible. Not try to do that without sharing the screen here.
This is Suha from Sandak. Thanks, Matt. We will be emailing out the survey link to all the attendees.
And we just wanted to include Alex Estrellas and Suha's contact information as well. If you have any questions, we can go ahead and contact them as well. So I want to again thank you for allowing us to join you and present today.
Great, thank you so much. We'll be sure to make sure that we take that survey.
Great, and I'll after I stop sharing here, I'll add the link to the into the chat as well.
Sounds good. All right, next we have item 6, which is the flexible fleet procurement with Danielle Coachman.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my computer's a little bit slow at the moment. I'm trying to turn on my video, but good morning, everybody. It's great to see some of you that I haven't seen in a while, virtually, of course, but for those of you that don't know, I actually used to facilitate this committee quite a few years ago, and so it's great to be back. I'm here to talk a little bit today about a flexible fleet procurement effort that we have underway. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, now I'm all set up. You can see that?
Perfect.
Awesome. So in the last item, there's a bit of discussion around the 5 big moves in flexible fleet. So I don't want to give you a big primer on that, but I will do a little bit of summary about what we're talking about here, and then look for some feedback as we try to really kind of initiate this effort to really help get some pilots going in the region so that we can really see how flexible fleets can work well in San Diego, and we can work together with our partners around the region to learn some great lessons about how to implement these and meet different needs for different populations, and kind of have this great shared approach to how we implement it with all of our partners. So again, 5 big moves, we talked about that already, but really kind of the vision is how can we offer travel choices and make travel alternatives to driving alone convenient and flexible, and a really great option for people of all different ages, abilities, and also preferences, because people have different preferences as well of how they like to travel. So really having options out there and leveraging technology to have an integrated system, world-class transportation system for everybody. So flexible fleet services are one of those components. They're meet a number of different needs, but we have categorized them into a couple different categories. Micromobility are low-speed devices that generally operate on our roadways. They're more restricted because they're under 25 miles an hour generally. And so we have scooters, e-bikes, which you've seen all around the county recently, both privately owned and shared. And then also neighborhood electric vehicles, which if you're not familiar with them, they look like golf carts. They can seat, a driver and like 5 other people. We have downtown the Fred service or circuit, which has been around for some time. And they're really kind of neat, small, low speed devices that can take people on demand to different destinations. Ride hail and car share, we've categorized together. Ride hailing being, Uber, Lyft type services or taxis as well, that you call to pick you up where you are. And then car share being, we've had a number of different car share services in San Diego. We had Car2Go, which had the small electric vehicles and changed later to gas powered. We also, and those were dockless, I guess, where you could park them anywhere and pick them up and the app would tell you where they were. We also have had a number of services that, they had designated spaces that you would, basically rent the car from and then have to return it to one of their designated spaces at some point. The most recent car share services in San Diego City have been gone a few years. There's still designated parking that you'll notice for them. And there's been discussions with the city about, repurposing some of that space. Ride share, applies to once we're pooling riders into the same vehicle, which is something that, Sandag promotes heavily from, helping us meet our goals of reducing congestion and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so, Uber and Lyft can fall into the ride share category as well, because you can or before the pandemic, you were able to choose the pooled option and ride with other people. So that in that circumstance would fall into the ride share category. We also have, our van pool program, which has been around a lot of years, and a lot of different services that offer ride sharing services. And then finally, microtransit is on-demand shuttles. They're typically larger in size. They can be, 10, 12 passenger shuttles, 16 passenger size shuttles. You really want, kind of a shuttle size that meets the demand of the service. And these can be, intended for feeder type services to take you to a train station or just, an origin destination for people that kind of want to get around in areas where transit's not available, fixed route transit's not available, or, for some other reason, it makes a lot of sense for people to be picked up at their homes and taken straight to or near their destination, with a little bit of a walk. So those are kind of the categories of services that we're talking about when we say flexible fleets, but, the overall concept is this on demand that you're able to, arrange your ride when, you don't have to book in advance and it will come to where you are, or, you'll be able to access a vehicle nearby and use it, to get to your destination without having the traditional fixed route nature of buses. So, as we talked about, there's a lot of different types of flexible fleets and, how you design the service, depends on the community, but, there are really great options for flexible fleets to meet a need in all different sorts of communities and thrive. And it's really just about tailoring the service for the amount of demand, the type of community, and, whether it's, urban, rural, suburban type of setting. And also, there's a lot of private sector providers of flexible fleet services. We really envision a future where, we're not only working with our public sector partners like jurisdictions, our, nonprofits and specialized transportation providers around the county, but also these private companies to really figure out how we can all address, the issues and challenges in the transportation world that we want and, work together in a variety of different models, where there could be a private sector lead or a public sector lead. Sandag could be, like sponsoring a project, or, we could be working with a jurisdiction or a specialized transportation provider. So really thinking about, how we can solve our transportation problems with this kind of unique service that's become a lot more available, as technology has advanced. So I have a lot of detail up on these next few slides, which I'm probably going to run through quickly, but just to let you know, we have done a number of pilots already. We partnered with the city of Carlsbad and NCTD to operate the Carlsbad Connector service. And that came about because we really identified a need. Sandag has a really robust employer outreach program where we work with employers throughout the county to help them develop and implement programs to encourage their employees to, use alternative modes, to, ride transit, to use a van pool, to carpool with other employees. And so, we noticed up in Carlsbad, there were quite a few employers that, were hearing frequently that their employees were interested in taking the coaster, but there's a big employment center along Palomar Airport Road that's a few miles from the coaster station. There was a fixed route transit service that was connecting them, but people that are coming from downtown, for example, they're riding for an hour on the coaster to, well, 40 minutes on the coaster to get to Carlsbad, and then waiting for a fixed route bus. And then, you know, it doesn't take them directly to their destination. The commute was just too long to make it a feasible trip for people to take. So we worked with our partners to get the Carlsbad Connector program going. And there were 4 shuttles that were being operated to connect people from the coaster station at Poinsettia to their employment location. And so people could book their ride on their phone. There was also a phone number you could call, and you could book your ride. It got pretty impacted. So we always recommend that people book their ride before they actually got on the coaster, because you don't want to get up there and be stranded. Yeah, you could book your ride on the coaster if you wanted to. And then once you got there, the shuttles were waiting. It would group people, you know, the 4 shuttles would be waiting for the train to come in. It would group people according to their destinations and optimize the routing, and then take people, you know, as quickly directly to their place of employment as a, you know, shared ride service can. For that service, it was free with a coaster pass. But if people did not have a coaster pass, they had to pay $250 for their individual ride, which was in line with the price of bus service at that time. We didn't have it necessarily taking people to the doorstep of their place of employment. There's on the map in the lower right-hand corner, there were virtual stops that were designated, which were kind of these locations that we noticed that was safe for a vehicle to stop. And, you know, there would be frequent destinations within a 5-minute walk. You know, so a lot of employees were going, you know, if one corner, you know, and then they would spread to kind of 3 different office locations that were right around the periphery of that spot. And so that really kind of cut down the time of driving so that people were able to get to their destinations faster, because if you're taking everybody directly to their doorstep, the trip becomes much longer with U-turns. So it was a very successful service, and people that used it really appreciated it. It ended in July of last year. There wasn't, you know, the ridership demand during the pandemic to sustain it, but we are working with NCTD to reinstate the service as a permanent service as ridership, you know, begins to come back and people are returning to their offices. We also worked with Ford Mobility to do a 6-week pilot in Oceanside. There's that neighborhood electric vehicle that I was talking about. And so that was called Hoot Rides. Ford Mobility actually carried the entire cost of this project. They wanted to see how the service would work in Oceanside, so they didn't have any government subsidization. And so they fully funded the 6-week pilot, you know, and it was, again, you had an app to hail the ride. You could also flag it down on the street like a taxi cab, and it would pick you up if it was available. And so it operated Thursdays through Saturday and then Sundays as well. And there was a lot of kind of weekend beach travel. You can see there people with their surfboards getting out of Hoot Rides. And that was, you know, they charged the users $3 and they could go anywhere within the service area. So for those of you that are familiar with Oceanside, it's, you know, a wonderful community with a lot to do on the weekend. So it was very kind of recreationally focused service, but really embraced by the community for the short time that pilot existed. So now getting to the procurement that we're working on. Sandag has identified some funding to do some additional pilot projects. We're working on a strategy right now to figure out, you know, what use cases we want to test, looking at like different needs that different populations have, and then really using that to kind of identify where would be the best place to test those types of services and their ability to meet the needs for the use cases. And we also, you know, have learned from our previous pilots that it really is important to have great partners at the table as we try to launch these new types of services and learn lessons about what works and what doesn't work. And for those of you that are familiar with, for example, our specialized transportation grant programs, any funding that's received through SANDAG or from the government has a lot of strings attached around what types, how you do a procurement. There's a lot of, federal requirements that you have to meet. And so the idea here was that if we did a joint procurement and we built into our procurement enough capacity that, the city of San Diego or FACT or, any Jewish Family Services, any kind of agency that has these requirements could then leverage this procurement and contract directly with the vendors that we select just have that service and skip that step. So trying to really narrow the focus, make it easy, streamline the process for people that are interested in pursuing these types of services. So we are looking to hire vendors for different categories. So we have, as we talked about, micromobility, also a car share program, a ride hailing / ride share. We've put those together, and then microtransit. And so another opportunity that comes about from doing this flexible fleet procurement is that in a way we'll have kind of a preferred vendor for the region for the next 3 to 5 years. We're looking at a 3-year contract with 2 1-year options because technology is moving quickly. So we don't want to really kind of tie ourselves into a long-term contract, but looking at really an opportunity to test some services, learn some lessons, and then probably go back out at the end of this contract and do it again and maybe select a different provider. But by having, a single service, you could, ride up in North County and then hop on the coaster and come down to Central San Diego and use the same app to book a ride instead of having, each jurisdiction and each program have their own app and their own provider. We can have that consistent experience for customers who want to ride the service. It also just kind of helps us to work together with our partners to learn lessons and share best practices. So a lot of this I've covered already. We're going to have a list of providers for each of the different categories, and then both SANDAG and also the partners that we work with can use those providers without having to do a procurement contract directly with them. They can negotiate their contract with them and work on developing the specific operating parameters of the service that they want to provide. So, SANDAG's here to support other agencies that want to do pilots. But it's also, gives our partners and other agencies flexibility to tailor the service for what will work best for them. And I already talked about there being a 3-year agreement. And so we will assess at the end of the 3 years if we want to exercise any option years or if technology has changed so much that there might be new providers in the market and we want to go back out. And so really kind of what we're thinking about here is how can we test new business models and work together to learn how these services can meet the challenging needs of different populations. I think this really kind of wraps up what I want to discuss and give you an overview of, but really what we're looking for you today is, we have developed our scope of work and are hoping to finalize it with feedback from the last few stakeholders, including yourselves. And so, we have requirements around accessibility included in the scope of work. And so just wanting to hear from this committee about, what are the accessibility factors that we should be considering with these types of services to make sure that we are incorporating that in the scope and that the vendors are ready to address the unique needs of our populations in San Diego that need accessible services. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hoping to hear some feedback from you guys and some input. And I'm going to be taking notes. So if you hear me typing,
Thank you, Danielle.
Hyper.
It's great to see you. Thank you so much for that information. I guess I have a couple of general questions or comments about project. I'm interested in seeing how it's going to fit in with different types of stakeholders and the specialized transit grantees. I know a lot of specialized grantees aren't offering on-demand service, but they're offering, you know, next day or a few days in advance type service. And so it'll be interesting to see what the fit in for that is. And then I'm also thinking if there's any type of incentives for being a flexible fleet provider, such as tying with the 5310 vehicle program, or being able to apply for electric vehicles that would be able to help with this service. And then the other thought I had was about the difficulty that a lot of the providers have with the cost of MTS permits and things like that, which make it a little bit cumbersome for more providers, both in the private and a nonprofit sector, to be able to provide accessible transportation in the region.
So you brought up some really great points, Megan. Thank you for that. You know, one of the things that we really want to enable with this is connecting our specialized transportation providers in the region with, you know, app providers that can help make their services on demand. When I talked about the microtransit services, I didn't mention that we have two categories within that. You know, one would be a turnkey solution where, you know, the people, for the vendors, would include a transportation service, and the other is just the app. So it would be enabling existing transportation service providers with the app that gives them the ability to, you know, do a more on-demand service. We are expecting to have funding available through the state, the TNC Access for All program, that's going to fund on-demand accessible rides. And so this was kind of one of the things that we saw as a big driver of this effort, is there's going to be dollars available for specialized transportation providers to do on-demand service. And it's going to require, you know, a government style procurement. So let's, you know, get you easy access to those app companies that, you know, provide those services, so that you can help you provide that on-demand services with the funding being available through the state. And we definitely have a vision for all flexible fleet services being electric in the future. So we're getting there, but thank you for the comments on that. And that's something that, you know, I definitely want to consider and see how I can incorporate. And can you mentioned incentives for being a flexible fleet provider?
Yeah, sorry, let me adjust my camera. So one of the things I was thinking of is that we're hearing a lot of, you know, feedback from different providers of accessible vehicles in the region, specifically in the private sector, but also nonprofit transportation providers, that the cost for their MTS permits are really expensive for them. And then there's insurance and fuel and all that, that's, you know, causing there to be a real issue with supply and demand in transportation in general.
Yeah. And this is a problem that I've been hearing about since a couple jobs ago that I had here at Sandbag. But thank you, you know, for bringing that to my attention. And honestly, that's something that we need to be troubleshooting with MTS and continuing to work on how we can streamline that process and make it more affordable, so that, you know, these services can, you know, provide the amount of supply we need with a reasonable cost to meet the demand within the region. So I'm not sure that that really gets incorporated into the scope of work for the flexible fleet providers, but I think that we need to restart conversations with MTS about streamlining that process. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I see a hand up from, I think it was Clyde.
Yeah, hi, Danielle.
Hi, Clyde.
Hi, I wanted to, I don't know if this is the right place to do this, but I want to put in another plug. I was really pleased to see that people on the one provider were able to carry their surfboards with them. A problem that I encounter frequently on public transportation is that there's not enough taken into account that folks are not just going from here to there. They're going to shop. They need to bring their groceries home. They need to bring their pick up and bring home purchases. They need to maybe they're going on a picnic, I don't know, but they have more than just the need of getting their immediate body. Even students will be carrying often school projects, things like that. And the standard seating in most vehicles does not really accommodate extra things. So I just want to make the point that as we're dealing with different providers, different projects, it needs to be emphasized over and over again that folks have greater needs if they're going to be expected to use public transportation of any kind. They have more than just getting to work or just getting to school, or, I mean, those are important things, but daily life has more complications than that. That's all. I just wanted to get that in there. Thank you.
Heidi, that's a perfect comment, and this was definitely the appropriate place to say it. We had on the Carlsbad connector service the option to book 2 seats per passenger so that you had a seat next to you available for the things that you needed to carry if you had, I'll say, excessive cargo. And so that's something that we should definitely be incorporating. Maybe that's not the right solution for every service, but making sure that that's something that the providers are considering is how to accommodate people's needs as far as the things they need to bring with them. Thank you, Clyde.
Thank you, Danielle.
All right, thank you for your comments, Clyde. It looks like Wayne has his hand up.
Yes. You know, I know you mentioned it a couple of times, but accessible transportation. And, you know, San Diego is just terrible for people in a wheelchair to try to get transportation. And when you're talking about car share and micro mobility, ride hailing, you know, that there's very few taxis. Now it's really hard to get a shuttle even to the airport, you know, and I know those aren't the public transportation, but it's just, you go to DC or something and it's no problem. You can get around, and there just needs to be more. I know there's supposed to be an incentive coming, but when you call Uber, you know, and they say, oh yeah, we have accessible transportation, as long as you can get into the seat yourself and all this other stuff, you know, and I can't do that. So
right.
Uber, Lyft don't work. And so I just want to emphasize that, you know, to really, that's something to really be looking at is wheelchair accessible, or not necessarily wheelchair, but anybody who has to have that accessible transportation.
I totally agree with you. There's been I mean, Uber and Lyft has never had a good accessible option in San Diego County. There's been a very significant lack of accessible taxis in San Diego County. We helped by 4 up in Oceanside and a couple in San Diego, but very, very few. And so, you know, that's a, you know, problem that I really hope we'll be able to solve through this procurement, is making it available to have more of these services with wheelchair accessible vehicles.
And the taxis that are available and the shuttles also, you have to get away a long time in advance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they won't even accommodate you.
Right.
You know, I had to get one that's very expensive out of Coronado for a shuttle just to get to the airport, especially since Cloud 9's accessible stuff moved away from there. You know, I'm always getting asked up at the VA hospital, how do you get to the airport? You know, they call all over and can't find anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Wayne, thank you for your comments. I think it's really important for us to look at what's available as far as accessible vehicles in the region and try to use them as efficiently as possible. FACT has 13 new accessible vehicles coming our way later this year, and we're always looking to partner with both those in the private and nonprofit sector to be able to use those vehicles in the region and you know, help to add that capacity. So I think that the more that we all talk about it, the more chance of those vehicles being put to good use will be available. So I'm happy to talk with you also on the side about any way we can get those vehicles out to the partners who can help with that. So thank you for your comments. And then it looks like we have Jay as well, who has a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, we secured 14 minivans through the 5310 grant program for paratransit use. We even reached out to our taxi contractors that we utilize for ambulatory services, offered them basically free vehicles as long as they provided service for accessible clients. And taxi basically said, no. I mean, they had no interest. They said it's cheaper to buy used Priuses and drive. The drivers don't want to deal with paratransit. They, so even with enticing them with free vehicles, taxi had no interest whatsoever in providing the service and getting involved. The only reason I bring this up is just to say that we're going to have to go outside of the box here to look for options to provide that service, especially with that money from the Uber and Lyft fee. I think it was what, $13.76 access for all. That we're going to have to look, partnership, MTS, NCTD, FACT, SANDAG, to really find vendors that are willing to provide that, make sure that money is allocated to provide Uber level service for our paratransit riders in the San Diego County area. Because I don't see any miles. I know FACT does what they can. We do what we can, NCTD. But we're limited in our access to capacity. On-demand service is almost non-existent. So all I'm saying is we need to really look outside the box and address this issue because it is a major concern for those who need paratransit service and the lack of equality in services that are available.
Right. Great point, Jay.
I was going to say, I think, these issues were coming our way before the pandemic, and they've just been really highlighted with everything that's happened in the last 2 years. And we're having that same issue where the providers don't want to operate these vehicles. It's just so expensive for them. And I think insurance costs is one of the things that they've, cited for being such a barrier. And if there's any way we can put our heads together, kind of like what Jay's saying, and think of ways to pool that to get pool the insurance or something that could be maybe under a nonprofit umbrella or something social service related to where, it's not such an exorbitant cost to have these vehicles. I've heard, I think $9,000 a month per vehicle is what it's costing insurance wise, which is just so prohibitive and disincentivizes the providers of these and the people who have these accessible vehicles to even to drive them or operate them at all. So I appreciate your comments, Jay, and I agree. If there's any, meeting of the minds that we can put together, we'd be happy to join that effort.
Yeah, I think we really need to get the 4 different agencies together and really brainstorm on this, and whether it's looking at a VIA or something like that to come in and try and assist with it or something. I don't know what the answer is, but I think we've all got to get very creative and look at what's out there and new options and technologies out there to provide this type of service, because the standard model is not working.
Brian, maybe that's something we could talk about at the regional short range transit planning meeting.
Sounds like a good item.
Great.
Thank you, Jay.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments for Danielle or questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you so much, Danielle. It was really good to see you.
Great to see you all. I hope I'm back soon.
Alex, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was a little bit late raising my hand. Yeah, I do have a question regarding the app. Will the app comply with 508? Make sure that is compliant.
That's something we'll have in the scope of work.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And then could we take a look at your RFP?
Yeah. I'll work with either Brian or Allison to share it out to the committee.
Thank you.
Yeah. Give you guys an opportunity to look at it and see if we're missing anything as far as, the specifications of the app, or, we want to make sure that not only do we have accessible vehicles, but, we want, accessibility to be considered throughout the process of booking, taking, and, every part of the experience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. All right, the next item is the chair and vice chair selection. It's already that time of year again, so I'll go ahead and turn this over to Brian.
All right, thanks, Megan. So, yep, it's that time of year again. We're here to elect a chair and a vice chair. Ideally, it's separate votes, but I think last year we ended up doing it in one vote. It just made it easy. But the chair and a vice chair are nominated and elected annually by the STAC to serve a one-year term. As most of you know, the chair conducts the meetings and the vice chair stands in the wings waiting for the chair to get sick, and the vice chair steps in and runs the meetings otherwise. Primary or alternate voting members may be elected as a chair or vice chair, and they would retain their status as primary or alternate voting member during their tenure. So you can be alternate and still be a chair. You just don't get to vote unless you've been assigned to vote during that. So with that, we're looking for nominations from members on who would serve. Anything you want to bring up for chair or the vice chair? The floor is yours, members. I guess you can self-nominate too if you want to make this process easy.
We nominate Megan for chair.
Thanks, Wayne.
Second.
I'd like to nominate Jay as the vice chair.
Thanks, Robert.
I second it.
Thanks, Wayne. Any other nominations? Go ahead.
Can we nominate Ashley, our new person?
Ashley's staff, I believe. Are you Alex? Do you mean from the city?
No, I meant Ashley, our new staff person.
No.
Okay, didn't know. Just
it
thought
has
I'd
to be
ask.
it has to be actual STAC member.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem. Someone on this list. Sharon, when you speak up like that, it sounds like you're nominating yourself.
No.
No,
But I would if you needed me.
I see Clyde's hand up. Go ahead, Clyde. You guys can just jump in too.
I would nominate Alex for vice chair.
I second that, Sharon.
Alex, are you even up for jumping into a vice chair role?
Is this Alex Warner?
Yes.
Okay, vice chair role. I would be up for it.
Thank you. And I know you're newer to the STAC, but you've listened to a few meetings and you're with the city, so you obviously know protocols and all that. All right, anyone else? So right now we have just the one nomination for chair. We have two nominations for vice chair. Hearing no other at this point, let's go ahead and vote on the chair, and then we'll deal with the vice chair and see if we need to do two votes or just one and combine them. So and Allison or Ashley, did you guys get who did the motion and second on the chair?
I didn't get who, Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong, you were the nomination for chair, but who was the second for that?
Is it Robert?
It was Jay.
Ted Kagan was second that motion.
Oh, Ted, my bad. That's fine. All right, let's go ahead and I'll do a roll call vote for Megan to be our chair again for next year. We'll start with Ilse.
Yes, I vote yes on this.
Thank you. Clyde for Kent.
I vote yes for Megan.
Thank you. Lori,
Yeah, yes for Megan.
Sharon,
Yes for Megan.
Catherine.
Yes.
Let's see, we have Adriana
Yes.
and Elsa. Oh, that Elsa had to take off, I believe. Todd? Did Todd make it back in? I know he had jumped out to panelist. I think Todd had to bail, and I don't believe Edward's here, right, for Home and Gutting Hands? Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't see Todd in the list
Yeah,
now.
he had dropped at some point. I don't believe anyone from the ARC is here yet. Nope, so we'll jump down to Elder Help. Elizabeth?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Cynthia?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes. May I change that no vote? I tried to get on there and I wanted to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Jay? And Robert?
Yes.
All right, that passes. Congratulations, Megan. You continue to receive no pay for your work.
Well, it's my pleasure.
And then vice chair, we have the two nominations, Jay and Alex. I'm not great with Robert's rules of rule of order. I can't remember who moved for Jay. Was it Megan? Who nominated Jay?
I did, Robert.
Robert did.
Yes.
And I don't know
Are you
if
okay with that, Jay?
or if Jay just wants to give it up and give it to Alex, and we'll just vote on Alex, or have a.
I don't care. I volunteered for it last time. It's taking us too long to vote.
Right. All right, so Jay's ambivalent about serving in the position and Alex has accepted. We'll do a roll call vote, and you just will let me know who you are voting for in this position. I think this works. So Ilsa?
I vote for Jay.
For Jay. Clyde?
I nominated Alex. I vote for her.
Okay. Lori?
Jay.
Sharon?
Alex?
Catherine?
Alex.
And let's see. Adriana?
Am I allowed to not vote on this round? Just
Sure.
because I'm not very familiar with it. Thank you.
Abstain? Jump down. I believe we still don't have Elsa or Marissa, right? Or Todd. So we're going to keep jumping. I believe we still have quorum. Elizabeth?
If possible, I'd like to abstain as a new member.
All right. Cynthia?
I'm going to abstain. I don't know. I would follow Megan's
Megan?
lead. Thanks.
Alex?
Jay?
Alex?
Love it. Robert?
Jay.
Oh, no. All right. What's our count? You want to help me, Allison? 1, 2, 3 J's? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
3 J's, 5 Alex, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So it sounds like Alex wins that vote. So congratulations, Alex.
This is beginner's luck, right?
That's right. And you also get the same
Thank
pay as
you.
Megan. It's nothing. It's we
Thank
appreciate
you.
your
It's a
help.
pleasure serving.
Thank you, everyone. I
For
appreciate it.
your last few years of vice chair service also. Appreciate it.
All right, Megan, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, so it looks like I'll continue on as the chair and then we'll have Alex as the vice chair. Thank you everybody for that. Our next item is the transit operator update. So we can go ahead and start with MTS.
All right. Just some quick updates. Pronto rollout and free fare month continue on MTS and NCTV. Reminder, get your Pronto cards and set by October 1 when fares will start being charged. Anyone who did get a card from one of our events but filled out the paperwork for that card to be converted to an SDM card, that will be completed by October 1. Individuals might use their card now and tap and it would say adult fare, but they're all in the process of being converted. And as I was told, they will be done by October 1, so not to worry. They're probably 90% of the way on that process right now. Everyone here is getting very excited about the launch of Midcoast in November. We've had trains do full-length trips and tests. So everything is on schedule there for the opening. There will be some route changes coming out associated with it. That information is forthcoming. For MTS Access, the volume continues to increase every month. We're still at about 37% of our pre-COVID volume. We are hopeful as the pandemic continues to subside that more and more riders will come back. The applications for eligibility for access are actually back at pre-COVID levels. So we hope that that's a good indication that ridership will not be far behind that. We continue to practice COVID precautions as much as we can. We do require face masks on all vehicles for the FTA regulations. We are multi-loading though on our trips, and we have resumed in-person assessments. Everything's been going well there. And then just to share a quick photo, if I may, that we have, as I mentioned earlier, launched our new vehicles into our fleet. So we have 14 wheelchair accessible minivans that have been added to the fleet to provide another mode of transportation to our access riders. We've gotten positive feedback from both drivers and clients on these vehicles so far. So we're hoping access riders find this a nice addition to our fleet. And that completes my report. I'd be glad to answer any questions anyone has. Thank you.
Nice, I like that paint job. Sharon.
Yes, hi. I'm going to attend the MTS is having that division meeting. And I know there are different divisions, even East County updated their bus locations where they can store the larger buses and room for the buses. Can you enlighten us a little bit more about that, Jay?
Sorry, Sharon, I'm not quite sure what your question is.
Sure. There's a public webinar about the new division that they want to open up another division for storing buses. And that's,
okay. I didn't hear.
Yeah, if you could elaborate.
I didn't hear new division when you brought that up. We are in the early part planning and looking at options for a Division 6. The more east of our central location here in downtown. The primary need for a new division is with the conversion of the fleet to electrical and making them zero emission buses, that it requires a much larger footprint to put all the charging infrastructure. If you've ever been by our downtown lot or many of our other lots at night, buses are literally parked bumper to bumper and mirror to mirror to fit them all onto the property. That doesn't leave any room for charging infrastructure, even using overhead gantry systems. You need more space between vehicles. So one of the early things we recognize is we just do not have the footprint necessary in all of our divisions to go to 100% electric. And the only way to accomplish that, because there's also an increased need for the number of buses due to the range on the electrical, is to look for and operate a sixth division to be able to give us ample space to electrify 100% of the fleet. So that's what you had brought up. It's Division 6, and it's in the very early phases and getting public comment.
Thank you for that. And I have one more question, Jay. I have a question about the internet. There was a trial period for certain buses to offer the internet while you were on the bus. The only time I got on a bus that actually had it, I asked the driver, I said, "Oh, you're having free internet for buses." And he says, "Oh, no, we're not." So I missed it. I missed that window to try it out. Will that be implemented again so we can find out how does the Wi-Fi work on the public transit so we can therefore give the survey feedback?
Excuse me, I don't know of another trial period, but I will look into that, see what information I can get on that, and have Sandex share that out.
Or if we could go to some location where some of the buses are stored or whatever, so we can at least attempt it to see how it really plays out using the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I don't know about the availability of that due to security concerns and people on site, but I will look into it and see what information I can get and share it back out.
And when the new trolley opens up, maybe that could be a bus could be presented there, because I know I did open day for the trolley where we went to 3 different destinations on the new trolley ride, and there was a party and wonderful events, and Scott Peters was there. It was a whole really nice thing, and they did have a bus there that was going to be a shuttle bus, but he didn't know anything about the route. So maybe when you have your next, and I think you probably will have another event closer to the opening of the trolley, maybe you could also bring some of those buses there. Feedback.
I will look into that option.
All right, thank you, Sharon. Any other comments for MTS? All right, thank you, Jay. We could go to NCTD. Robert?
Good morning, everyone. This is Robert Gibo from NCTD. I'll mirror what Jay talked about. Our ridership is still 33% of pre-COVID levels. So we're waiting to get that back up. Our eligibility, we're back to pre-COVID levels. In fact, we're seeing more applications than we were seeing before COVID hit. That's a good thing. More people are wanting to use our service. We're still having a shortage of drivers, so we are looking to hire drivers. So if anybody wants to be a driver, feel free to send them to NCTD. We have our October bid, which is scheduled for October 23rd and 24th. There's some changes coming in that bid. In the last couple board meetings, our board has approved a couple of things that include, we're going to add more coaster trips during the day, during the midday. During the midday, there was a big gap, so we're going to add additional trips on our coaster service. Our Flex 372 route, which goes to Fallbrook, will be eliminated altogether. We only had 22 trips for the whole entire year last year, so it just didn't make sense to run that Flex 372 any longer. And then we're going to add an Uber and Lyft service. It's a demand service. It will cover 3 cities in our district: Sorrento Valley, Vista, and Carlsbad Poinsettia. So basically what it'll be, anywhere within those city limits, the customer pays $2.50 for their customer fare. The district will subsidize an additional $7.50 for a $10 trip. And then what it'll be the Uber and Lyft fare. So if your trip is less than $10, then it's covered. Anything over the $10, then the customer pays the additional fee for that. So Uber and Lyft are, they have pricing determining the time of day. So if you want to go someplace at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's probably going to cost you more than it would if you went at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're going to start that service and roll that out here pretty quickly. And then we're also doing the Sorrento Valley Coaster Connection shuttle service, which will be handled by one of our taxi providers. They're going to provide all of the service. In both of these scenarios, we're going to give them 7 vehicles to run this service. So Uber and Lyft will handle the ambulatory service, and then our taxi provider using NCTD vehicles will use wheelchair accessible vehicles to provide wheelchair trips within that zone, these 3 cities. So hopefully everything works out. We'll be sending a lot of information out. It'll be on our website, and we'll keep everybody updated as this progresses. So it's going to happen very quickly. It's just the board made the decision last Thursday. So again, we'll keep everybody updated as it progresses. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Robert. I have a couple questions. What was that third city? You said Sorrento Valley Vista and
Carlsbad, Poinsettia.
Okay, thank you. And then related to that TNC service, you said $2.50 would be the fare. And then is that the same fare regardless of whether it's by the accessible vehicle or not? Okay.
So $2.50 is the NCTD regular fare to ride our fixed route services. So that's the regular fare. The district will subsidize $7.50, bringing it up to a total of $10 for the trip. So if the Uber and Lyft fare is above $10, then the customer will be responsible for paying whatever's over $10. So it's $2.50 they pay for the initial fare. We subsidize $7.50, and then anything over $10 goes to the customer to pay the rest.
And is that the same for the accessible service as well?
So for the accessible service, yes, it'll be done kind of in the same format. So we're still putting that pricing together, and as soon as I get some additional information, I'll relay that out to everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
Megan.
It looks like we have, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the hand.
Sorry, Megan, it's Jay.
Oh, Jay, okay.
2 things. First, a question for Robert. Robert, you say that'll be serving SVCC, so that's going to be in addition to the shuttles that are operated out of there?
So no, those shuttles will now be operated by NCTD. So, and that's what this will be, is the shuttle service will be operated by NCTD to provide that service to what has been previously offered in that area. So we're going to provide the shuttle service, and then we'll provide a microtransit demand service within Sorrento Valley.
Okay, could you give me a call after the meeting just so we could talk on that and coordinate?
Sure, definitely.
Okay, and then Megan, real quick, I just want to answer, I believe it was Sharon's question. The Wi-Fi free trial is actually still going. And if you go to MTS's website and go to sdmts.com/free-Wi-Fi, all of the details and information are available there.
Thank you, Jay. And I have questions for whenever it's my turn. I have questions for Robert.
Thanks, Jay. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, Robert, I have 2 questions. One about the Fallbrook. I have gone to Fallbrook to the art museum and spent the day up in Fallbrook and come back on public transit. Does that mean what you're saying is will be no transportation to Fallbrook?
No, so the service that's currently going up to Fallbrook is not going to change. It's just the flex route we had, the 372, the deviated flex route. We're no longer going to provide that route. So yeah, we'll still be providing service to Fallbrook. We just won't be doing it using a flex deviation route.
Okay, great. That took care of that one. And then the next one, the Sorrento Valley. At Sorrento Valley, their UCSD would show up and take the students from Sorrento Valley train station back to the campus. Is that no longer going to be working?
No, they'll still continue to do that. So none of that is going to change. It's just NCTD is just gonna take over the shuttle service that was being provided, I believe, by MTS. So again, so yeah, it shouldn't change. So the schools still do their trips.
And so on that Uber or Lyft, does that mean the person getting off the train has to pay for the Uber or Lyft ride? And or also, do they have to set up an appointment? Is it a scheduled run? How does that work?
So again, when we're still putting some of the details together, and as soon as I get all the details put together, we'll market this and we'll get it out to everybody.
Okay, because sometimes coming back from North County, coming back to La Jolla, it's easier to get off at Sorrento Valley to take a shuttle to go to UTC to take the 30 bus to go back to La Jolla than it is to go all the way to Old Town.
Okay, definitely.
Gotcha, thanks.
Sharon, this is Clyde. If you do
Yes.
go, if you go and test the Wi-Fi equipped buses, will you be sure to come back and tell us about it at the next?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sharon and Robert. Was there any other questions for NCTD or comments?
Are our Pronto cards from STAC, are we allowed to use them on the coaster?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, thank you.
And it just, you got yours, obviously. Did others get theirs?
I did. I'm all excited.
Yay. Has others started receiving theirs?
This is Catherine. I haven't received mine yet.
This is Clyde. I just got mine in the mail.
This is Wayne. I got mine.
Okay, so it sounds like they're coming. If you don't get yours in the next couple days, maybe email Allison and myself, and we'll troubleshoot it. But I'm assuming they're out there on their way. And if, like I said, if you don't get them, let us know.
And it comes in a little square envelope. So I think it's a great size because it doesn't look like it's something that somebody's sending you for free. So I love the size of the envelope. Just don't overlook it.
All right, thank you for the transit operator updates. We'll go ahead and move on to item 9, which is the fact update. So a couple of things. We are still working with the Code of Conduct Subcommittee to work on a regional uniform code of conduct that addresses inappropriate behavior amongst all of the riders as well as staff, and trying to still work on the difference between the different specialized grantees when it comes to volunteer drivers, employees, other staff, board members, and then also with riders. So we've met 4 times and we have a 5th subcommittee meeting happening, I believe, next week or the week following that. So it's been a long process. We're still kind of plugging away at some things. We've come up with a statement that we're all agreed upon, and also identified some specific prohibitive behaviors that would result in either immediate or temporary or permanent suspension from services. And then our next meeting will be reviewing the appeals process and how to submit grievances. And so we're still spending a lot of time on this. I appreciate everybody in the subcommittee participating. We have SANDAG folks who are on that subcommittee, as well as Marcy from Travelers Aid, and then Marilyn from Jewish Family Services. So we're still working on it. We'll continue to provide updates to this group. And if there's any questions that anyone has about that, please let me know. Zach is helping, and so is Jenny Russo from SANDAG on that. You can always reach out to them with any feedback on how that's going as well. And then the next update is that we have, we'll be having some vehicles, as I mentioned before, new accessible vehicles available, hopefully later this fall or early winter, and we'll keep you updated on that. If anyone is interested in those accessible vehicles and operating them, please let us know. And then we do have a couple new services in the last couple months since we've met last. We have expanded our scripts service, so we're now in 3 different hospitals working with scripts to help their case managers with when they're discharging patients to either their residents or to other hospitals. And then we also added a radiation clinic recently in Vista and started doing transport for their patients to that location. And then we've also started a new contract with 211 and the county to provide transportation to cool zones when we're having these hot days, and as we get more into fire season with the power safety shutoffs and all of those things going on, will be available to help with transporting. So anyone can call 211 for information about that program. And then the next thing I have is just that we have our board meeting, our next board meeting this Thursday. That's an open meeting, so anyone's welcome to join us if you'd like. Let me know and I can make sure you get that agenda. And then our next CAM meeting will be October 12th. And if anyone is not receiving those agendas and would like to, please also let us know on that. And I believe the only other thing is that we have our annual meeting again coming up December 16th. So save the date for that. I think we're still trying to figure out whether it's going to be in person or a virtual meeting like last year. So we'll keep you tuned into that. Does anyone have any questions for me? Robert?
Hey, real quick, I just realized what I just did, and I understand why Jay got flustered. For the Sorrento Valley, we're going to cover from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. for the trips that MTS couldn't cover because of the time the train comes through with the additional trains. So we will be, NCTD will be covering trips from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. for the Sorrento Valley. So we're not doing all of Sorrento Valley. So yeah, I should have clarified that. I apologize. I just wanted to bring it up. And I'll still give you a call, Jay.
Thank you, Robert. Sharon?
Thank you.
Yes, Megan, could you put a link in the chat about the Scripps hospitals? Because I'm a Scripps patient, and I know a lot of other Scripps patients that I could pass on the information and about also where the radiation is. So that way I can maybe I can find out about the notifications when there's some new ones added. I don't know how to do that. Not sure if that exists.
So yeah, it's a little bit tricky with the Scripps situation because it's not advertised at all to the public, the contract that we have with them. It's basically Scripps case managers decide who can use the service. So when they have a patient, let's say discharging from Scripps, Mercy, Hillcrest, the case manager will call FACT directly and request transportation. So it's not open to just anyone who is a patient of Scripps. It has to be specifically chosen by their case managers to use the program. And then the same thing with the Scripps Vista Clinic, their staff at that location are choosing who can use the program.
So how does one, I have a case manager, but haven't had to use her since the radiation treatment. So how do you let the case managers know, hey, keep me in the loop if I get hospitalized so I know?
Everything's coming
they change staff.
So everything's coming from the Scripps, the executive Scripps at those locations. So like the directors of operation or the director of case management for each of those locations is the one who's deciding who is able to use those programs and keeping the staff informed about that. So you could always mention and say, I heard that there's a transportation program with FACT, can you direct me to the case management team who's handling that? And then maybe they'll be able to put you on some type of eligibility, but FACT has no control over that. It's all coming from them internally.
And why is it not transparent?
It's a direct contract with Scripps Hospital, so it doesn't have to do with any public funds from SANDAG or from subsidized through something else. It's all directly with Scripps, so Scripps is in charge of handling that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Any other questions for me for FACT? Okay. So it looks like our next meeting will be November 16th at 10 a.m. And thank you all for joining us today and for your time. Thank you for the new members. And thank you also for Jay for his vice chairmanship this last year. And I hope everybody has a great afternoon. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone. See
everyone.
you next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great couple of months.
Hey.